I'd never heard Miriam Therese Winter's Zacchaeus song before. The one I grew up on was this one. Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and a wee little man was he. I can tell some of you are my age or a little above it. You learned that in Sunday school too, didn't you? Probably those of you who were from the Miriam Therese Winter generation of songwriting didn't learn that. Is there anybody who never heard that song when you were in Sunday school? Okay, some of you did not. Oh, and some of you who are older didn't hear it either. Okay. Well, we are a diverse congregation. More than that. Seriously, something about Zacchaeus sticks out. This wealthy tax collector climbing into a sycamore tree to catch a glimpse of Jesus. And we, some of us anyway, find it easy to identify with Zacchaeus. It's not so much that we're filled with a desire to be faithful or saintly, just see what's going on. And we want a glimpse of someone holy or something holy. I mean, the real thing. We might see it. So imagine the sensation of being up in that tree, sneaking a look when the Messiah himself walks up, looks up through the leafy boughs, and says, fill in your name, blank, hurry on down, I'm coming to your house today. Imagine the sensation. I can imagine the sensation because we had the Dalai Lama in our house one time. Wow. And we're not even Buddhist. Technically, it was my dad's house and mom's. And I had to be at a distance, so I didn't get the good look. Imagine the sensation of being up in that tree. The Messiah coming to your own house, and your life will never be the same. The story of Zacchaeus wasn't just written for short people. It's not just written for unpopular, wealthy people. It's not only written for tree climbers. The story of Zacchaeus is for any who ever thought we were insignificant, invisible, on the edge, couldn't catch a good view. It's for anybody who ever thought we were a nobody, trying to catch a distant glimpse of God. Well, the Savior is determined to be a guest in our house now. Jesus doesn't wait for the change of heart. That comes after in this story, right? I mean, Zacchaeus up in the tree is still unrepentant. There's nothing to indicate that Zacchaeus wants anything more than a good look. It comes after, when he comes down. It is our response to Christ, that change of heart. The Christ who initiates, insists, offers grace without conditions. Jesus doesn't say, well, I'll come to your house if you make restitution. That response from Zacchaeus at the end of this story, a genuine desire to start over to the point of basically giving it all away, reveals that the human heart, even the heart of a greedy profiteer of a corrupt system, is capable of remarkable things. And if that kind of a heart can be changed, then any heart can be changed. Yours or mine. The human heart is capable of remarkable change, remarkable reformation when Christ comes calling. Tomorrow, Halloween, is also the 505th anniversary of when the young Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to a church door. The local church door there in Wittenberg, Germany, where he lived. His 95 charges and tough questions. Now, Luther's theses were about, I want you to know, in preparing this sermon, I went back and I read all 95 of them. They were about the free availability of divine forgiveness over against the terrible practice of the day of withholding that forgiveness from those who really feared eternal punishment after death. And Luther, in these 95 theses, kind of goes in at it like a diamond, like every aspect of this thing, and he pokes at it. And Luther extensively criticized the sale of indulgences, the practice of the church to offer forgiveness of sins to individuals in exchange for something, for generous gifts, for example, for church building projects. Now, a lot of us think that Luther was going after indulgences generally. Actually, Luther doesn't do that in these. I checked closely, and it's not indulgences themselves that he so much got a problem with. It's the sale, it's the bargain, it's the use of fear to raise funds and for things which he doesn't see as important. So here are a couple of these short theses that he writes. Number 42, indulge me. Christians are to be taught that the Pope does not intend that the buying of indulgences should in any way be compared with works of mercy. 43. Does just give you a taste, because you got to read all 95 of them. Christians are to be taught that one who gives to the poor or lends to the needy does a better deed than one who buys indulgences. Now, Luther, I believe, thought he was going to engage in an academic debate with this thing. It wasn't nailing that thing. It was a common custom, if you were going to have a debate, to put the terms of the debate up on the door. And he was shocked by the reaction that he drew. And today we say that the Reformation of the church began that day. Now, in truth, reform efforts had long been underway in various corners of the church, including within the Augustinian movement, which Luther was a part of. My Roman Catholic friends are quick to point that out. But this was a moment that set in motion an unplanned series of events that ultimately led to a decisive break in the officially recognized churches of Europe, including a lot of people killing each other over it. So it's important to know about it. And the early reformers, including but also before and after Luther, were not just concerned about corruption in high places. They also began publishing translations of the Bible in the languages of the people. And thanks in large part to the printing press, the people were reading it, and the ones who couldn't read were hearing it in words that they could understand. And what they heard had very little to do with what they had been hearing from the church, or so it seemed to them. Like Zacchaeus, they, the little people, had a chance now in reading and hearing the gospel stories in their own language to glimpse Jesus up close and personal from the low-lying branches, a Jesus they'd never met before. And they responded. The Reformation, that was a threat to the power establishment in the church, but it was also a burst of new life that Christianity needs from time to time. It was not all good. It had more than its share of violence and oppression. And I want to share a few more words with you from another reformer, Menno Simons, who was a leader in the Anabaptist movement. And the Roman Catholic Church has actually sought forgiveness from the Anabaptist movement formally, not that long ago, I think in the 1980s, for the persecution, but the Anabaptists were persecuted and killed by the Protestants and Catholics alike. But Siemens persisted. Menno wrote these words 22 years after Luther nailed his challenge to the church doors. They were the words of a Zacchaeus, someone who had seen Jesus and received him and his spirit of mercy and justice and been changed forever. For true evangelical faith is of such a nature that it cannot lie dormant, but manifests itself in all righteousness and works of love. It seeks, serves, and fears God, clothes the naked, feeds the hungry, consoles the afflicted, shelters the miserable, aids and consoles all the oppressed, returns good for evil, serves those that injure it, prays for those who persecute it, teaches, admonishes, and reproves with the word of the Lord, seeks that which is lost, binds up that which is wounded, heals that which is diseased, saves that which is sound. The persecution, suffering, and anxiety which befalls it for the sake of the truth is to it a glorious joy and consolation. The title of the book he wrote was Why I Do Not Cease Teaching and Writing, 1539. Now, I'm not bringing up all this Reformation history for the sake of a history lesson today. Well, I don't mind a history lesson, but I'm doing this because in this second decade of the 21st century, the Church of Jesus Christ needs a movement again. We need to get a fresh glimpse of Jesus, like that wealthy tax collector in the branches of a sycamore, like the folk who first got a chance to read the Bible in their mother tongues almost 500 years ago, more than 500 years ago. Some going on 6, because there were lots of unauthorized translations early. And when we catch that glimpse of Christ, there's still a chance that Christ will catch sight of us. And invite us to a radical reformation, transformation if you don't like reformation, that we're most in need of personally and most in need of collectively as the church with a capital C. If ever Christianity could use a little help, today we surely could. The grand institutions of yesteryear, at least in this nation, are closing or struggling. COVID has accelerated the trend that was already afflicting mainline Protestant Christianity. I put mainline in quotes. It's been a while since we've been the main line. Churches are struggling, trying to invite the world in, but we're also struggling just trying to reassemble after some recent unpleasantness, after this disarray. So sometimes, we worry about the future, right? And yet, I propose to you that in our very institutional weakness lies an open possibility for God. It is to us, Christ now says, individually and Presbyterian United Church of Christ people, come down, for I'm coming to your house today. Christ won't wait. Christ won't wait for our institutional agenda of renewal or repair. The world does not need grand religious institutions. What is needed is intentional communities like this one that stand for some things. Works of mercy, solidarity with the broken and the oppressed and the sojourner. The world doesn't need booming voices talking down from on high, offering a narrow moral vision and an agenda of political power that ain't got nothing to do with the gospel. For that matter, it doesn't need a 1950s Protestant American Christianity, liberal as it was, either. with large Sunday school departments. Notice I didn't say no Sunday school departments. We don't need the large, grand institutions right now, not even the wonderful programs, much as we miss those days. Christ calls the church today. Christ invites us out of our onlooker tree positions to engage fully as communities of hope and plain talk and radical welcome, gathering groups of plain people who invite the onlookers out down from their trees, off the sidewalks, down from solitude, out of quiet desperation, to share the love of God. Communities that are willing to go meet others where they are in service, in prayer, in solidarity. There's some suitcases headed for Cuba out there. Christ invites us to still a new kind of community. So what is still a new kind of community after 2,000 years? Made up of new friends, former onlookers, and former insiders. Christ invites the bystanders to become Christ's hands and feet and friends. Now, I don't know if you consider yourself an insider or a bystander, or if it depends on whether it's Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday. For most of us, it's a mix. So we're invited, but we're also invited to invite. Next Sunday will be the final day of a very short pastoral relationship between me and you. I hope we give Pastor Kate a really warm welcome indeed on her first Sunday back after her much-deserved sabbatical. But I feel enormously blessed to have served with you here at Presbyterian New England Congregational Church. If you were to invite me back to preach next year, I wouldn't be able to say that anymore, so I'm maximizing it, right? It's about to become Presbyterian United Church of Christ at the first of the year. But I want to say, whatever your name is, you are one of the most intentional, practical, and giving groups of people I've ever partnered with, and I've only met a few of you. And the value of our time together for me has been beyond measure. Just want to say that. For me, see, this church is a sign of hope. If a renewed, open, radical Christianity is going to have a chance, to be a reforming, transformative presence in this country of ours, it's going to take congregations like this one. That's an invitation to think a little bigger, to go a little deeper, and it's also a challenge. And it's also an assurance. Friends, you can do this. You are doing it. Keep the faith. Keep your eyes on the community, on the grace, on the mercy, on the justice. Keep the faith. Keep on keeping on. I want to close with words attributed. I notice everywhere it says attributed, so I think that means they don't know what book this comes out of. But tradition says these words come from a remarkable Spanish woman responsible for the renewal of one Catholic order of sisters who profoundly influenced the entire Roman Catholic Church and was a contemporary. She was born when Martin Luther was still young. Teresa of Avila, sometimes called Teresa of Jesus, had a life that testified to a remarkable encounter with Christ. And she wrote, "Christ has no body now but yours, no hands, no feet on earth but yours. Yours are the eyes through which Christ looks compassion on this world. Yours are the feet with which Christ walks to do good. Yours are the hands through which Christ blesses all the world. Yours are the hands. Yours are the feet. Yours are the eyes. You are his body. Christ has no body now on earth but yours. Amen.